dead internet theory is the terrifying and unsettling concept that most of the internet isn't real. The freedom the old internet had to discuss, to learn, to explore, to express is gone. Now it's regulated, filled with bots and algorithms used to control and manipulate you and the conversations you have online. If a narrative doesn't fit, it's shadow banned, it's suppressed, it's throttled, it's argued against by a swarm of repetitive responses, it's shut down. If it isn't allowed, it's crushed. I've talked about this topic for years now, and it turns out so much of what I said before has been proven correct. When I spoke of intelligent AI-driven bots communicating like humans and having full-on conversations, it sounded ridiculous to a lot of people, but now that's been proven absolutely correct. In fact, Timothy Shoup of the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies predicts that by 2025 to 2026, nearly 99% of the internet will be generated by artificial intelligence, meaning this isn't going to change anytime soon. You and I, we've lost this battle. We now know, thanks to the rise of artificial intelligence like ChatGPT and Google's Bard powered by Lambda, that seemingly intelligent, thinking machines can carry on conversations in an authentic and realistic manner. The responses of these bots materialize in mere seconds. Just imagine the power of instantly having unlimited voices agree with your perspective. Think about the potential for corruption, influence, and sway. Anything you want could be created by this artificial army. Back in the day, you'd have to convince hundreds, thousands, or even millions of people to support your cause. It took years, decades, or even centuries sometimes to achieve goals that benefited humanity. The abolition of slavery, women's rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, the list goes on and on. What was hard fought, where people suffered and died to achieve their goals, that can now be completely circumvented. Now if you need millions of people to agree with you, well, you can, as long as you've got money, power, or control. Before we get into that, let me set the scene. People fear what they don't know. People fight only what they see. Fear and insecurity are excellent motivators to influence people to make decisions that benefit others rather than themselves. This is the way things went for so long. Wars were waged by the young and decided on by the old. It was a system that was fundamentally broken, but so few knew that. A young and spry boy would sign up to go to war because that's what his father did. The control and propaganda of the time wasn't in the hands of the individual. It was in the hands of the powers that be. It's the same reason that boy would come back a broken man that never wanted to talk about what he did over there. A man haunted by the truth and reality of it all. A man that was fooled into stepping on a knowledge bomb and walking away with the horror it entailed. That was the world back then. Knowledge and information was for the rich and powerful. The working class person simply accepted it or not. There were so few alternatives. Then appeared the internet. A small window to a vast and overwhelmingly massive world. Through a web browser, one could see and interact with others like never before. You could learn new things, share and discuss information, explore places you'll never see with your own eyes, and talk to people who you would never meet. A small town teen in a population of 6,000 could find her identity with like-minded friends from across the world. A sports fanatic could argue and debate with others who shared similar passions. A divorced mom could find a connection in an unexpected place. Two people of foreign lands could share life experiences and develop deep friendships. The internet started as a novelty, but it grew into something so important to billions of people. But then the people started getting a little too free. Ideas, concepts, and knowledge started to get out of hand, at least in the minds of the former holders of power. Previously, all news and information was heavily filtered to fit a single narrative. Keep the wars, keep the power, keep the money, keep the control. It was simple and effective. This worked for hundreds of years, but the internet sidestepped everything. An individual could make their own decisions on what to read, what to watch, who to listen to, what to talk about, and who in the world to talk to about it. This created one of the greatest times of advancement in human history. I call this period the Old Internet. This was truly the Wild West of the internet, and if you didn't use it during this time, it's hard to explain now. You were free to do what you wanted, both the good and the bad. That's the cost of true freedom. Take for example the freedom of speech. Allowing the freedom of speech means sometimes you're going to hear things you don't agree with, which sucks, but it also means that you can say how you feel, and sometimes people aren't going to like that. Within this freedom of speech, society is supposed to dictate what is promoted and what is shut down. Good ideas will eventually break through to the mainstream, while bad ideas get relegated to the outskirts of public discourse. But here's the thing, these decisions aren't supposed to be made by billionaires, corporations, or governments, but by individual people. It's society taking charge of what they deem acceptable. Billionaires should have no say in politics, period. No one should have the power to influence and manipulate millions of lives on a whim just because they felt like it. It's irresponsible and dangerous, regardless of good or bad intent. Then we have billionaires funding pundits to rile up people and get them mad over pointless, meaningless culture war nonsense, so they can cut their taxes even more and push their ideology without you noticing. No unelected person should have the power to single-handedly change the lives of millions of people, whenever they want, wherever they want, however they want. And these pundits are paid millions of dollars to push whatever the issue of the day is, and sadly, so many people fall for it. Then we have corporations, which are simply machines driven by the desire to create money. They want more money every year, forever. That's a publicly traded corporation in a nutshell. If that means marketing beer and candy bars to a new demographic, then that's exactly what they're going to do. They don't care about you, they don't care about them, it's always about the money, and the more riled up you get, the happier they are. It's cold and calculated, and it's meant to drive engagement and conversation. Remember the old saying, there is no such thing as bad publicity? Exactly. Then finally we have the government, whose responsibility is to protect the public, defend and expand our rights, and improve our lives. Off the top of your head, you can probably see where they're failing in those regards. As always, corruption, billionaire-funded lobbyists, and ideology are always guiding these goals. When 98% of politicians don't care about anything other than their bank account, what else are we to believe? The point I'm getting at is that the freedom the internet gave us during the old internet has eroded away. It's all gone now. Anyone with money or power can change the internet to fit whatever narrative they want, and they do. They do this every single day, and we all suffer because of it. Today, if someone says something on a video that's too controversial, it's demonetized, deleted, or removed. If someone talks about a subject that is deemed inappropriate, it's not even allowed in the realm of discourse. Like, for example, conspiracy theories. This has become such a taboo phrase today. There are endless conspiracy theories out there that are actually true, and just as many out there that are false. For example, during Prohibition, the government poisoned alcohol to keep people from drinking. This was a conspiracy theory at the time and was later revealed to be true. Another conspiracy theory from back in the day was that the FBI spied on former Beatle John Lennon. Not only was that true, they also tried to get him deported. The FBI also tried to get Martin Luther King Jr. to kill himself. That isn't a conspiracy theory anymore, that's a fact. The idea that the government is spying on you, fact. Big Tobacco knew smoking killed and caused cancer and hid that from you, fact. Big Oil knew climate change was real and they funded studies to confuse you and to say otherwise, fact. None of these are conspiracy theories. Just as the Gulf of Tonkin incident and the sinking of the Lusitania were intentional, these were conspiracies that later turned out to be true. Or how about how the US knew that Pearl Harbor and 9/11 were going to happen before they happened, but they did nothing to stop them? Intentionally, unintentionally, or as a means to go to war. Regardless, these crazy kooky thoughts turned out to be true. These conspiracy theories turned out to be conspiracy facts. Even if one of these comes along that isn't true, let others debunk them. When you tell someone that they can't talk about that, it automatically raises a red flag in their head. Why can't I talk about that? The issue shouldn't be the phrase conspiracy theory. It should be the details of each on a case-by-case basis. A conspiracy is nothing more than the action of plotting or conspiring. That's a conspiracy. And a theory is a carefully thought-out explanation of observations by bringing together facts and hypothesis. That's a theory. Combine the two, and you have a conspiracy theory. If my friend and I talk about stealing a pizza, and come up with a plan to do so, we have conspired to do something. And if someone sees us talking and scheming about stealing a pizza, they may come to believe that we're going to steal a pizza. That person has now created a conspiracy theory. As of right now, they can't definitively prove that we're going to steal a pizza, but they're pretty sure that we're going to steal a pizza. Conspiracy theory isn't a scary phrase. It's a real thing that happens all the time. So why is it forbidden to talk about? Why is it shut down all the time? Why? Because it goes against the mainstream narrative of what is to be believed and what is acceptable to talk about. The Overton window doesn't allow such talk. It's throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Yes, some are obviously stupid and untrue, obviously. But on the same hand, some of them are incredibly compelling. And to just censor them all? It's ridiculous. One very relevant example is the dead internet theory. When this first came about, it was talked about on a few forums, and I made a video about it. It was very small at the time, but it's grown tremendously in popularity since then. But back then, there was one other piece of media, an article published by The Atlantic in 2021 titled, "The Dead Internet Theory is Wrong, but Feels True." Why would you phrase it like that, other than to discourage interest or belief in it? Why come at it with that perspective? Why not establish the details of the theory, then counter said details? If you don't believe it, fair enough, but debunk it thoroughly first. It just rubs me the wrong way to disparage a topic in the literal title of the article. Here's the topic, it's wrong. Moving on. It's so disingenuous. If we bring this back to the freedom of speech, I say let people talk about any of these things. Nothing should be taboo to speak on right out of the gate, because society will inevitably deem something as acceptable or not. It's not a billionaire, a corporation, or a government's responsibility to curtail your speech. If someone talks about something ridiculous, then break down why it's ridiculous. Argue with them. Debate them. Win in the battle of ideas. It isn't a crazy concept, but when billionaires and billionaire-funded pundits push ideas, that's cheating. When corporations push ideas, that's greed. When the government silences voices, that's tyranny. You have to remember that these three factors, they are working on what they want, not what you want. So let's bring it all back together to the dead internet theory. Have you ever heard of the term grassroots? It's when a bunch of people come together for a cause. It's called grassroots because it's natural. It's real people wanting real change. Now it's all astroturf. Fake organizations created by money, led by paid pundits, pushing objectively bad ideas for the sake of the funder. Artificial views, artificial numbers, artificial comments, artificial support. Do this enough and eventually real people will join your side as well, thinking, oh, I guess a lot of people agree with this. I guess this is the correct answer. Wow, I finally have a community. It's poison, it's rot, it's corruption, and it's always existed, in small ways. But now with the dead internet theory supporting all of these causes, seemingly nothing can stop them. When I first spoke about this, it wasn't known. This was a speculative theory based on a ton of disconcerting pieces of evidence. Now we know it's possible, and anyone with a smartphone or a computer can do it. Everything I've talked about has been proven beyond a reasonable doubt to be possible, and even more so, likely. I previously spoke of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. This is the emerging technology branch of the US Department of Defense. Their objective is to make sure that the US is never left behind technologically. It's been proven that the technology that they have is on average 10 to 15 years ahead of what we have publicly available. Meaning this incredible innovation in AI and machine learning isn't new to them. They've had it for years and years. While it's shocking and incredible to us, DARPA has had this technology, meaning the US government has had this technology and without a doubt been using it on us for years. Meaning most of the internet is dead. It's overwhelmingly made up of artificial intelligent bots composed of advanced programming, machine learning, and impressive algorithms. There's a reason when I first heard this theory so many years ago, it made my jaw drop. It was a dark and scary thought that I had never considered. Before learning of that, the evidence and experiences we had all shared were pushed to the side in favor of rationality and dismissal. That's ridiculous, that's absurd, that can't be true. But now that truth is so in our face, and our world is changing before our very eyes. Can we deny it any longer? I don't think so. So let's dive deeper into the dead internet theory rabbit hole. Let's talk about SIMI, the search engine manipulation effect. SIMI is a theory created by a man named Robert Epstein. It's a terrifying theory that claims the outcome of elections can be changed based on the results of search engines. Put simply, depending on how results are displayed when you Google a candidate, those results can change the opinion of the average voter. The evidence comes from 5 experiments done in 2 countries and suggests that search engines have an insane amount of power to sway public perception when it comes to elections based on what comes up when you search a candidate. Specifically, SIMI shows that biased search rankings can shift voting perspectives of undecided voters by 20% or more. In certain demographic groups, the number is actually higher than 20%. Not only that, this manipulation is so well masked that users show no awareness of the manipulation. Meaning if we know the proportion of undecided voters in a population that has internet access, as well as the proportion that can be influenced by SIMI, it's easy to calculate the win margin which SIMI can create. Meaning this is a major indicator of predicting election outcomes. We know that Google search results are a Potemkin village. I talked about that in the Dead Internet Theory Part 2, and as such 5% of people searching never go past page 1. That means 95% of people using search engines never go past the first page. The first 5 things that pop up absolutely have an effect on undecided voters. If the results are negative, it negatively affects the views of 20% of undecided voters. If the results are positive, it positively affects the views of 20% of the undecided voters. Now think about Google search results. What pops up first when you Google something? Ads. Meaning it's paid to win. The most money gets the best SEO ranking, gets put at the top of the search result, and they win. Money wins, power wins. It's not the truth, it's not a battle of ideas, it's who pays the most. Again, billionaires, billionaire-funded pundits, corporations, and the government. It always comes back to them. This invisible manipulation affects everything. Simple searches deliver easy answers, while difficult searches with tougher answers, like who should I vote for, or what is medically wrong with me, aren't treated any differently in the algorithm. When you search for something and you have 4 or 5 positive search options, opinions shift thanks to Simi. One negative result in that autofill completely shifts the dynamic through negativity bias. I see bad things, they must be bad. This is such a simple but powerful means of manipulation. If a search engine company wanted to suppress or promote a specific candidate, product, or idea, it'd be as easy as increasing visibility and suppressing negative autofill in your search suggestions. If they don't want certain candidates or products or ideas to be talked about, it's just as easy. Promote negative autofills. One great example that is super relevant to all time is the Mandela effect. If you Google the Mandela effect, you are bombarded with, it's fake, it's dumb, you simply have a bad memory, these are false memories, etc. Here's a Snopes article explaining why it's fake. It's a complete negative autofill. It's Simi working just as intended, which changes the perception people have about it. Look up anything you want on Google. Is it negative autofill? Is it positive autofill? Is it a mix between them? Look it up, see what the results are, see how it makes you feel. Does it change your perspective of something? Simi is incredibly powerful. Regardless if they're true or false, they get suppressed and negatively autofilled in Google search results. 61% of Americans believe that the JFK assassination was a conspiracy. This number comes from polling in 2013. But just think about that for a second. A majority of the country believes in that conspiracy theory, but it's still suppressed. It's still negatively autofilled. If you look it up, you'll see results talking about how it's ridiculous, how it's untrue. It's still challenged at every level. Why? Why can't people speculate and talk about that? What harm comes from the freedom of speech? Let the battle of ideas happen. If the majority of people naturally come to the conclusion that something isn't real, then so be it. But to manipulate and suppress results always comes across as super shady, whether intended or not. If some form of human activity hurts the planet, as in damages the world we live in and makes it harder for all of us to live, knowing those facts would cause the vast majority of humans to want those things to change. It shouldn't be this way, it should be better, this is obvious. But when you throw in irresponsible and detrimental manipulation from powerful and moneyed interests, it changes the argument. What should be a straightforward and obvious, things should be better, becomes, maybe that hurt is good for the planet. Or maybe the planet isn't actually being hurt by this thing. Or what about the profits of the people hurting the planet? Are you against making money? It's quite literally as simple as laws passed by the government by corrupt and paid for politicians to protect corporations doing this thing that hurts the planet. It's a vicious cycle. Now you throw in the dead internet theory and the power behind it, and you've got good people making horrible choices because they're being manipulated and they don't even know it. It's not just disturbing, it's horrifying. Imagine all the implications where this could be happening and the effects of it, and we have no idea it's happening. So many companies are responsible for this, but let's take Google for example. This company has the power to single-handedly shift the opinions of billions of people every single day. Any topic, any perspective, any angle that they want to push. They have the power, and they use it. Sit back and consider that thought. Even a slight manipulation of the display order of results could cause rippling effects across millions of users. Now imagine if they really wanted to change something. You don't think they have the power to do it? There's a reason that Google always wins. Google has multiple ways of doing this, besides just Simi and the dead internet theory bots and algorithms. They create quarantine lists used to separate and isolate what they consider troublemakers into their own groups. The people in these groups can communicate to each other, but their reach will be unbelievably limited. Another way they do this is by shadow banning or censoring. If what you're talking about isn't acceptable to whatever billion or trillion dollar company's platform you're using, you simply won't be promoted. You'll be shouting into the empty void. Now, some will argue that features such as shadow banning and quarantine lists are used to cut off hate speech from the rest of users of whatever platform. And in some cases, that is correct. But my argument isn't that hate speech should be permitted, or that everyone else should look the other way. My argument is who is the arbiter when it comes to these rules? An independent board? A censorship board? The government? Leadership teams? Who makes the decisions of what is allowed and what isn't? Is it based on personal feelings, or is it based on a logically consistent policy platform? Are these rules publicly displayed and enforced fairly? What about retroactive policy changes? YouTube is notorious with this one. The idea that a platform can change its mind after the fact and punish those who broke their new rule before it was ever a rule It's mind-numbing and overly complicated on purpose. Confuse, distract, and control. Get all of you fighting and yelling and screaming about complete nonsense so they can walk out the back door with all your money and freedoms. The size of the hidden internet is estimated to be more than 500 times the size of the accessible internet. But when it comes to the accessible internet, Google is the bouncer, bodyguard, and man in charge. Google blocks millions of websites with no other form of access or way to reach these sites. And since they control over 90% of internet searches, they control everything. In fact, there was a time when Google literally shut down the internet for 40 minutes, using its blacklisting power. I'm not joking, the entire internet was shut down by the power of one tech company. It happened January 31st, 2009. Google somehow placed the internet on a blacklist, after a mistake caused every website in the search engine's result pages to be marked as potentially harmful and dangerous, meaning you couldn't access any website through Google. This problem affected internet pages across the entire planet and lasted for about 40 minutes before engineers were able to fix it. The glitch, as they called it, centered on Google's malware detector, which is designed to keep internet users from visiting sites Google believes may install malicious software on their computer. Google blamed human error when an engineer tried to add one web address to the list of those deemed suspicious and mistakenly added all of them. I don't know if this is a crazy idea, but I kind of believe that no company should ever have that kind of power in today's society. The ability for one person to make one mistake, or glitch as they called it, and in the entire internet as we know it, this is the kind of monopolized, unfathomable power I'm talking about. One person at one company did this. Bringing things back to artificial intelligence, this massive change that the digital world is going through right now has been happening for a long time, just not for us. For example, when Twitter first went up for sale, it had many buyers looking into it. One such buyer was former and now again current Disney CEO Bob Iger. Bob Iger said that they had determined a substantial portion of Twitter's users were not real in 2016, and because of that they decided not to purchase the social media network. Essentially, Disney didn't buy them because of bots. The engagement and the conversations, they weren't real. One marketing director on Twitter explained, quote, "Nothing that is extremely popular has experienced organic growth. All of your favorite things have had money injected in them to maximize awareness and sometimes juice popularity. It's an industry standard at this point." He continues, "Some of your favorite IPs or intellectual properties utilize bot farms for engagement and awareness. If you believe anything is organic on the internet, then you are not mature enough to be here." That is the perspective of these people. This is the world that they live in. Essentially, this is marketing now. It's all fake. It's not organic. It's propaganda pushed by bots and algorithms, and even the smartest among you is going to be tricked by it eventually. Studies have shown that bots account for 21 to 29% of all content on Twitter. But that's not all. A study conducted by SimilarWeb, a web analytics company, found that 19% of real, authenticated Twitter users in the US generate content every day, meaning that the other 81% of users are questionable and up in the air. That's a pretty shocking statistic. Before Twitter's sale to Elon Musk, who also claimed bots were a huge issue in the platform, Twitter claimed that only 5% of its accounts were bots while trying to sell the company. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Dan Woods, global head of intelligence at the cybersecurity company F5, who claimed that 80% of accounts on Twitter are bots. With these two extremes, what are you to believe? 5%? 80%? If we settle on the average between the two, we're looking at potentially 43% of accounts on Twitter are bots, which is absurd, but also believable if you use the platform. Because here's the thing, humans have the ability to sway opinions. Real people with clout might just change the narrative on major topics, and we can't have that anymore. Fake billionaire-funded astroturfed influencers are here to keep the message on brand, whatever the message is that they're pushing that day. Actually, I'll give you a hint. Listen up carefully. When 5, 10, 15 of your favorite shows, channels, or influencers all push the same narrative on the same day, be suspicious. Groupthink can happen, but groupthink doesn't happen every day, every week, on every topic. When you see or hear the same perspective with the same wording on the same topic around the same time, think about it real hard. What is there to gain from this? Money? Your anger? Your support? Is it a distraction? Should I care about this in the slightest? Does this actually affect my life? Does this actually have real-world meaning? Or is it made to rile me up? Once you lift that veil, I swear you'll never look at media the same way again. So what is real on this dead internet? We all know for certain that AI can produce astoundingly convincing dialogue. So fake personalities creating artificial tweets, posts, blogs, that's obvious now. AI can debate and argue against you in favor of whatever perspective it's directed to argue about. AI can write copy for companies, such as press releases. AI can write full and complete articles. As we know, this is happening at Amazon, Spotify, CNN, and too many other companies to name. We know that AI can create music and videos, which I'm sure will improve over time. AI can easily write, craft, and check code. AI has also been known to reproduce faces using deepfakes or to simply create new faces that look extremely real. AI can replicate your voice or generate new voices with only a small audio sample. AI can produce trends, fire up movements, and speak and write in any language. We have AIs now that have passed the bar exam, that have passed the US medical license examination. We have AIs that have passed the Turing test, for God's sake. And don't even get me started on LaMDA, Google's potentially sentient AI. I've gone into detail about LaMDA in 2 previous videos, which I highly recommend you check out if any of this is interesting to you. The world is changing. We are entering into a transitional period of history unlike any other that has come before. Recently, a photography contest was won by an AI-generated photograph. Before that, there was an AI-generated piece of artwork that won first place at a state fair fine arts competition. The future is approaching so quickly, and we don't have the technology or know how to properly deal with it. The fear now comes from legislation that will take this power away from us and put it exclusively into the hands of those in power. The cat's out of the bag, and now they're trying to grab the cat and put it back in the bag. We can't let that happen. Remember, the idea of banning all this stuff, it doesn't stop it from existing. It stops us from having it and being able to use it ourselves. That's why I'm hesitant to say this stuff needs to stop. We need to understand it better. We need younger people in leadership positions to help make the right decisions regarding all of this. We can't allow corrupt 80-year-olds that don't know how to check their own email in charge of the future of this type of technology. I've talked so much about the old internet and how it was democratized. We all had freedom to explore it and express ourselves. Then billionaires, billionaire-funded pundits, massive corporations, and the government stomped the life out of it, killed it, flooded it with bots and algorithms to control, distract, and divide us. AI has turned into the next key, the next grand future we're all looking at through a small opening. It's crazy, it's powerful, and it's overwhelming, but everything new is. It takes time. This just happened far sooner than a lot of people expected. This technology has the capability to better the lives of everyone on this planet, but right now it's in its Wild West stage. It's going to be a wild next few years. But is that justification for allowing them to stomp it out and steal it from us going forward? Do we let fear and insecurity control us? AI will make so many jobs easier. AI will allow information, technology, and art to travel and advance faster than it ever has. AI will solve diseases and find cures we could never dream of. In fact, it's already happening. Think about it, personalized, perfect healthcare for all of your ailments. That isn't that far away. AI will solve our engineering issues. It will resolve legal conundrums, improve infrastructure, completely transform industries, enhance the quality and efficiency of so many of the issues that plague society today. If the internet was a monumental leap forward for humanity, the rise of AI is the airplane taking off. The sky's the limit. We are entering a new frontier, and I ask that you don't walk into this future with fear, but rather with hope. The internet is dead. There are unfortunately few things that we can do on the individual level to fix that, but the next step is happening right now. We have the power to make sure it stays democratized, stays in the hands of everyone, stays open source. Automation technology was meant to allow us to work less, to accomplish more and work less. But instead of that, it simply increased our productivity and we work the same. And here we go again. AI can solve and remove so many of the technical, physical, and intensive parts of society and allow us all to work less and live more. Are we going to use this future tech to improve everything for all of us? Or are we going to allow this to be taken over just like the internet and used to crush us and divide us even further? The struggle has already begun. The power that Google has held for so long is actually being challenged for once. In fact, the creator of Gmail, Paul Boucher, recently shared his opinion that ChatGPT will replace Google. He speculates that it will replace Google search within 2 years and that Google will race to replace it with its own system, probably based off of LaMDA. Here's the thing. Why use Google search to find an answer to a question when Google search is filled with so much bloat, so many ads, so much misinformation, so many random links, when you can simply ask an AI and it gives you an exact answer instantly? It's fundamentally game-changing. It's amazing. The dead internet theory predicted today's world. Everything that's happening is exactly what we talked about. The internet we had is gone. It's dead, unfortunately. Potentially things can change, but the outlook is not likely as of right now. But if we were going to fight this and try to reclaim the internet, here's how we do it. First, we have to break up all of these big companies. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Google, Microsoft, Apple, YouTube, Snapchat, everything. Break up all the big monopolies. Set in place actual regulations and regulators that are incorruptible and truly independent. Then we need to reinstate Glass-Steagall, repeal the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and overturn Citizens United to remove money from politics. We need to punish corruption as one of the most offensive things people can do in society, and we need to elect younger politicians that understand the technology of today. Like I said, it's not looking very likely that we will accomplish any of these things, but hope isn't gone yet, because now the tables have turned. Now the technology that destroyed the internet, the very systems that created and flooded it with bots and malicious algorithms that stole the old internet from us, is available to all of us. That power that was controlled and harnessed by such a select few has finally escaped, and in such a small period of time. It was a crack, then a leak, then a burst, and now it's a flood. We now have the power that they had, and it's our responsibility going forward to make sure that it remains in our hands, and that it's used to better society, not to control and manipulate us further. It's all in our hands now. We have to do better. If not for us, do it for those in the future who will never know what we did for them. Plant trees today, whose shade we will never enjoy, whose fruit we will never taste. Systems don't just come into existence. They are created. So create. Make the freedom you want to live in instead of complaining about whatever nonsense you're told to be mad at today. That's the difference. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share my videos around, and support me on Patreon if you can. Remember, it's only me making all of this stuff, and it takes a lot of time to make it. Until next time, never stop searching.